Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, to be here today. We are very happy to receive Ms. Warif Halabi, the chargée d'affaires at the Syrian embassy in Tokyo, to hear a different voice, another voice about the situation in her own country. The press conference is open to anyone, but questions will be asked by our journalists, foreign journalists, but also Japanese journalists. I would like to start maybe with a little introduction, if you don't mind, by quoting Miss Maureen Dowd of the New York Times. She writes in her last column that that Syria is an eerie replay of Iraq. Let me quote Miss Maureen Dowd, the great Maureen Dowd. She says, once more we see the magnitude of the tragedy of Iraq because the decision on Syria is so colored by the fact that an American president and vice president took us to war in the Middle East on false pretenses and juiced up intelligence, dragging the country into an emotionally and financially exhausting decade of war and an identity crisis about the role of America in the world. We know apparently that some sarin gas has been used in Syria. Miss Madame Halabi will tell us more later on. A chemical weapon has been used. Who did it? We don't know yet for sure. I would like to remember you that sarin gas was used earlier, not in Syria, but in Japan by the Om sect, and the informations regarding the Om sect are not yet complete and known. 20 years later, Om remains a mystery. So we have to be very careful also when we know about Om, about the situation in Syria. So reserve a very warm welcome to Ms. Halabi. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also really want to thank FCCJ Club. I am very happy to meet all of you. To be honest, this is really a great chance for me to address the situation of Syria, especially on this critical moment, and also to clarify many situations, or according to your questions, in order also to seek your support. Especially, I know that the role of media is very important role, and it is your duty also to address the situation, to reflect the point of view of any situation, especially this critical situation, in unbiased manner, in order to seek the most appropriate way to solve this problem. And this is, in fact, why I am here. I want to clarify this situation, not only to speak about the use of chemical weapons, because this is one element, and to understand the situation, I need to speak about it. And I know that I came here only 1 month ago, but I noticed that it is reflected, our problem reflected only from one side. It is exactly what the US, as well as its alliances, whether they are from our region or from outside of our region. And this is why I want to speak about this situation. And so let me start. In fact, I want to say that we think that the U.S. want to deal with our situation according to the responsibility to protect concept. I don't know if you have an idea about this concept. It is very a new concept, but and this is why I want to speak about our case with this with the three pillars of this concept, in order to see if really worth to deal with our situation according to responsibility to protect, and at the same time to see if at the end or the consequences and the difficulties and the problems which you are going to face later on, in case we continue also following this concept. So for this reason, let me say that we know the international relations, the main principles which coordinate the international relations is according to UN Charter and the principles of and the purposes of the United Nations, which insist and strongly confirm on the respecting the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and non-interference in internal affairs, and all states are on the same level. So now we have, like after the end of the Cold War, and also, you know, the new world, what we say, the globalization and certain nomination as such, we are also start to speak about new concepts like responsibility to protect, like preemptive actions, like human security, like humanitarian interventions. So all of these concepts, actually, the intention behind also dealing or presenting these concepts is to change the principles, the UN principles, which I already speak about, which like the sovereignty and non-interference in internal affairs. So that if I want to now to speak, to address the responsibility to protect, actually it has three pillars. And in order not to speak only about the international law and without also clarifying the situation, I want immediately to speak about these three pillars in line also of our case. So, for example, the first pillar of this concept puts the responsibility of the state, the responsibility of the state to protect its population from, we have war crime, ethnic cleansing, and crime against humanity, and we have genocide. So in these four cases, the United Nations agreed to use the responsibility to protect. But of course, before we continue, I should say that there is still a discussion about this. We haven't agreed yet to imply this concept, because we said it is still under discussion and we need to clarify if it is really worth to follow or it is a dangerous concept. But we agreed that we continue our discussion with regard to this concept and to find out the measures, the way how to implement this concept. So, for example, for Syria, if we want to say the first concept speaks about the responsibility of Syria to protect its citizens. Of course, our government do their best in order to protect our people, and they are protecting our people. But because of so many allegations speaking about there is a crime against humanity from the beginning. I am speaking this, it is not now, it is 2.5 years almost now. They start from the beginning speaking about the government commits a crime against humanity, against its people, and also a crime of war, and all of these four crimes, they immediately accuse the government. And as such, they said the responsibility to protect should be also applied to the case of Syria. But of course, we always say, no, you have to be careful. You should clarify the situation, because it is not the government who commit such suicide or who kill also its people. And you know, they dealt with our situation first at the Council of Human Rights. And even, unfortunately, the Council of Human Rights dealt with this situation, and the information which already he put it in its report, on the Council report, most of this information based on also allegations, or only it was biased. It was only one side, because I was dealing with this issue 2.5 years before coming here on this issue, and humanitarian and human rights issues. So I know that we send them so many hundreds of letters clarifying our situation, addressing certain issues which addressed by media. Telling them that this case happened, for example, in certain place, and the terrorist group doing this, and we clarify each case according to the situation. But no one care about reflecting our point of view. This is why I'm saying that they took one side, and they based on this information, and they said the government committing such crimes. This is the first pillar. Now we go, and this is why I'm saying it is unfair to deal with our case under this concept. The second pillar, it is speaking about the role of the international community to help the state in exercising its responsibility. So now we come to this. We always address the United Nations, telling them, please come, we are facing a terrorist acts by these armed terrorist groups. Nobody cared about this. They only said, no, you are responsible, and you should also shoulder your responsibility and to protect your civilians. How can we protect our civilians while they kept silent, blind their eyes about what they are doing, and giving them the full support, as you know, whether it is financial support, logistic support, any other supports, and did not give us any assistance, goes with what we face. We are facing terrorist group. The international community has a commitment according to terrorism. So they did nothing, they kept silent. We go to the third pillars, which speak about also the role of the international community through the United Nations to has the responsibility to use appropriate diplomatic, humanitarian, and other peaceful means in accordance with the United Nations Charter. It is part 6 and 7. So now I would say it is according to chapter 6 and 7. To speak about chapter 6, it means that the United Nations should deal with this case in peaceful manner. So if I want also to speak about the Syria case, I would say, okay, Syria from the beginning accept to deal with this situation when they send us the Arab League mission group. We accept them, we dealt with them, and when they finish their work, they present the report, and the Security Council did not accept also to present this report. Then again, we have, after that, we have received also the UN mission in order, again, to find a political solution. And also we dealt with him, and it was also, again, similar. He withdrew, and also the Security Council did not accept. It comes later on. We also, Geneva 1, and we accept to deal with Geneva 1, and also when it comes now to Geneva 2, they don't want to wait Geneva 2, and they want to have military actions. I'm saying, of course, about the US and also some of its alliances. To speak about the humanitarian also process, because also here speak about the humanitarian means, we accept, my government accept to deal with the humanitarian bodies, international humanitarian bodies and UN humanitarian bodies, in order to also close the door and not to let them say you are not cooperating with us. We have a humanitarian response plan, and we accept certain NGOs dealing with this issue, in addition to Red Cross and Red Crescent and the United Nations body inside Syria. But of course, unfortunately, also this, we have a problem because it is not funded. It is only 30 to 40% funded. So it is not easy to also satisfy the need of affected population, the humanitarian need of affected population, while it is not funded. Now, this is a peaceful solution, so we did our best. This is why should not go to use the force against us, because according to Chapter 7, the Security Council can request or can also allow to have such actions, but when they feel that the member state intentionally they don't want to shoulder their responsibility and to protect civilians from these 4 crimes, as I mentioned. So now, if we want to say, okay, again, United States want to say that the situation now should be dealt by force. Okay, according to the 3rd pillar of the responsibility to protect, such act should be also should be allowed by the Security Council. As you noticed now, even the United States, they don't want to wait the result of the investigation, UN investigations, and they want immediately to act, use the force, and also to do military action against Syria, without considering also what we already agreed at the United Nations. So for this reason, to be honest, this is the three pillars, and this is the situation. And as you noticed, even other countries, because they know exactly even the responsibility to protect, if it is goes with our case, they should not do anything unless the Security Council allowed of such actions. Now I want to actually speak about the lesson learned, because as you know, the responsibility to protect also they invade Libya and Afghanistan according to these principles, and what the failure or the weaknesses of this concept, it was very clear for so many experts. And they mentioned that, for example, when you are seeking, because the concept of responsibility to protect, it is only for protecting civilians. So when you are seeking to protect civilians while not considering to find a solution, a peaceful solution, a political solution, you will not solve the problem, because you will face later on many other problems. For example, okay, they could manage to deal with the Libya case under this concept. However, what happened later on? So it is only, they mentioned that they want to protect the civilian. But what, for example, about the mercenaries? Those fighters who are also use them in order to kill Gaddafi or to fail his regime. And what about after that? Most of them in Mali, Niger, and countries around Libya now continuing their criminal acts, but no one can hold them accountable, because now there is a new government, and there is it is difficult to deal with them, because, as I mentioned, the responsibility to protect, it is only dealing with the protecting the civilians, but it has no rules for international law. So this is very important. The experts also agree that, for example, yes, in case of Libya, when the government fell, so they have the store of weapons. They couldn't control the store of weapons because there is no government, and you know those terrorists or I don't know what they call them, mutamarridin, or fighters or mercenaries. So many. They stole these weapons, and it is nobody know what they can do with this. But of course, in our case, I can tell you that most of these weapons comes to Syria, unfortunately, because after we finish with the case of Libya, immediately the situation started to be worsened in Syria. And also, as I mentioned, they need to hold accountable these responsible about the crimes. It is also, I want to speak about they noticed that because this case should be agreed on the Security Council, the motivation of the state, the member state of the Security Council, different. For example, some of them it is for the benefit of Europe countries to follow this case in order to finish this. But in other case, it is for the benefit of United States or other countries to follow. So here the benefits conflict each other, and it was complicated to agree on certain principles. Now it is, they evaluate that situation according to the benefit of the more powerful country. And I want to speak also about the case of Afghani, because this is very important. It is very similar, I think, to our case, because Afghani forces, they noticed there is no clear goal, and there is like no clear strategy. So, okay, for example, like now in Syria, if you want to interfere, to do military actions, what is the consequences? What is the result? Do you think if the Syrian government fell, and then the problem will be finished? I would say you should be careful, because if of course I don't think that will happen, but still we should think if the Syrian government fell, you should be careful about these terrorist groups. Most of them, 80 to 90% of them, are from the Al-Qaeda, Jabhat al-Nusra, are those able to really to be in that sensitive area, and also to live in a peaceful, and also to have a good relation with neighboring countries. Not only for our region, I would say. It is really very dangerous, because it will affect also the whole world later on. I don't know if you follow the news or the YouTube or any other medias, that it shows you exactly how they are a criminal, and also they have no belief. Unfortunately, they are using the Islam. However, believe me, they are very far from Islam, and they only following the order from outside actors who fund them and who support them and who ask them to do such terrorist acts. So, in fact, this is the explanation of of our situation. I know that right now most of you waiting to speak about the chemical weapons, the allegations of the usage of chemical weapons. You know, I explained the situation to understand what I want to say about this issue, because now it is again, because they couldn't pass, or they couldn't success when they mentioned that the government of Syria killed its people, committed crimes against the humanity, and also making a war crime. Because also other voices start to say no, the terrorist groups or the armed groups, or sometimes calling them opposition or whatsoever, those are also committing such crimes. So now they couldn't bring an evidence 100% or even 50% that the government doing such acts. This is the reason they start to find something else. And because Syria immediately, when Khan al-Assal accident happened, they used sarin gas. The terrorist acts also use the sarin gas in Khan al-Assal against our people, and we as we always do, we send immediately letters to the Security Council and to the United Nations asking them to let the UN investigators to come and also look at this accident and in order to clarify the situation and to protect our people from such acts.